39. How to sound like you know all about their job or hobby. Even more insidious than hobby talk is job speak, or gobbledygook. I still harbor social nightmares of the evening I attended a party thrown by a couple who worked in computer database management. As I walked in the door, I overheard one chap saying to another, "When the domain relational calculus is restricted to safe expressions, it's equivalent to the tuple-relational." That's all I stayed around for. I knew I wasn't going to understand one bit or byte of conversation the rest of the evening. It made me long for the days when a mouse meant the furry little fellow who loves cheese. Windows were the kind you bought drapes for, and the web was something spiders trapped flies in. I knew I was going to need some technical support if I was going to be compatible with this crowd. I decided then and there to learn some of the opening questions database management types ask each other. Which I did. Now I can't wait for a second chance at that crowd because I'm armed with questions like, what RAID level are you using? And what data warehousing product do you use? All you need are a few insider opening questions to get you started with any group. You ask questions, listen to the responses, and indulge in elementary on-target conversation with them for a moment or two about their field. Then change the subject ASAP. You don't want to fake you are more knowledgeable about their field than you really are. It's all in the opening question. A tennis player can tell immediately from just appraising your opening serve how good a player you are. Is it going to be great playing with you or a real bore? It's the same in communicating. Just from your verbal opening serve, someone knows if it's going to be interesting talking with you about their life or interests, or dull, dull, dull. For example, suppose I'm introduced to someone and the first words out of her mouth are, "Oh, you're a writer. When are you going to write the great American novel?" Yikes. I know I'm talking with someone who is unfamiliar with my world. We'll chat, but I prefer to change the subject. And soon, my conversation partner. If, however, my new acquaintance says, "Oh, you're a writer. Do you write fiction or nonfiction?" Bingo. Now I know I'm with a person who knows about my world. Why? Because that is the first question all writers ask each other. I enjoy talking to this inquisitor because I presume she has more insights into the writing world. Even if we quickly get off the subject of writing, she has come across as a well-informed individual. Every job, every sport, every interest has insider opening questions that everybody in the same field asks, and it's dumb outsider questions that they never ask each other. When an astronaut meets another astronaut, he asks, "What missions have you been on?" Never, "How do you go to the bathroom up there?" A dentist asks another dentist, "Are you in general practice or do you have a specialty?" Never, "Heard any good pain jokes lately?" The good news is beginning gobbledygook is an easy language. You don't need to master buzzwords, only a few opening questions to make you sound like an insider. Then, here's the fun part. When you tell them you're not connected to their field, they're all the more impressed. "What a knowledgeable person," they say to themselves. Help! Everybody there will be an artist. It's not hard to harvest good gobbledygook. Let's say you've been invited to a gallery opening where you'll be meeting many artists. If you don't speak artist, go through your Rolodex to see if you have an artist friend or two. Aha, you found one. Well, sort of. Your friend Sally attended art school. You call her up and ask, "Sally, I know this sounds silly, but I've been invited to an event where I'm bound to be talking with a lot of artists. Could you give me a few good questions to ask?" Sally might find your query a tad unusual, but your diligence should impress her. Maybe she'll say, "Well, ask artists what medium they work in." "Medium?" you ask. "Sure," she'll tell you. That's the insider's way to ask if they work with acrylics, oil, charcoal, pen, and so forth. Oh. Don't ask artists to describe their work, she warns. They feel theirs is a visual medium that can't be described. Oh. And don't ask them if their work is in a gallery. Oh? That could be a sore point. Instead, ask, "Is there any place I might see your work?" They'll love that because even if they're not represented by a gallery, they can invite you to their studio to possibly buy their work. Technique number 39. Learn a little gobbledygook. Big winners speak gobbledygook as a second language. What is gobbledygook? It's the language of other professions. Why speak it? It makes you sound like an insider. How do you learn it? You'll find no gobbledygook discs in the language section of your bookstore, but the lingo is easy to pick up. Simply ask a friend who speaks the lingo of the crowd you'll be with to teach you a few opening questions. The words are few, and the rewards are manifold. That's all you need to get started. 2 good opening art questions, and a warning against the most asked dumb outsider question. Let's say you've given a great opening serve with the right question on their job. You've slammed a swift ball dead center into their conversational court. Happily, thinking they're with an ace player, they answer your question. Then they put a little spin on the ball and send it lobbing right back into your court, and it's time for a follow-up question. Whoops! What to do now? If you don't want to come out of the bluffer's closet just yet, you must master the next technique, bearing their hot button. 40. How to bear their hot button. Elementary doc talk. My friend John, a physician, recently married a charming Japanese woman, Yamika. John told me the first time they were invited to a party to meet many of John's colleagues, Yamika was panic-stricken. She wanted to make a good impression, yet she was tense about talking to American doctors. John was the only one she'd ever met, and during their romance they didn't spend a whole lot of time discussing medicine. John told her, "Don't worry about it, Yami. They all ask each other the same old questions. When you meet them, just ask, 'What's your specialty?' and 'Are you affiliated with a hospital?'" Then, to get into deeper conversation, he continued, "Throw out questions like, 'How's your relationship with your hospital?' or 'How's the current medical environment affecting you?' These are hot issues with doctors because everything's changing in healthcare." John said Yamika delivered the lines verbatim. She circulated the party asking the various doctors' specialties and inquiring about their affiliations and relationships with their hospitals. As a result, she was the hit of the party. Many of John's colleagues later congratulated him on having found such a charming and insightful woman. Getting the real grabber. It's not just doctors. every profession has concerns that are all the buzz within the industry. The rest of the world, however, knows little about these fixations. For example, independent booksellers constantly complain that big superstore chains are taking over the industry. Accountants lie awake nights worrying about liability insurance for faulty audits, and dentists grind their teeth over OSHA and EPA regulations. Oh, us writers, too. We're always bellyaching about magazines not paying us for electronic rights to our precious words. Suppose some hapless soul were unlucky enough to find himself in a party of writers. Making conversation with these folks, who seldom know what they think until they see what they say, is no easy task for one who is accustomed to communicating in the spoken word. However, if before the party the non-writer had called just one writer acquaintance and asked about the burning issues, he'd have had hot conversation with the wordsmiths all evening. I call the technique bearing their hot button. Back to the art show you're about to attend. You can't let Sally hang up yet. She's given you the 2 best opening questions for artists. But don't let her go until you get the real conversational grabber. Ask her the hottest issues going on in the art world. She might think a minute and then say, "Well, there's always art prices." "Art prices?" you ask. "Yes," she explains. "For example, in the 1980s, the art world was very market-driven. Prices went sky high because some investors and status seekers paid exorbitant amounts. We feel that kind of took art away from the masses." Wow, now you're really armed with some good insider art talk. Technique number 40. Bearing their hot button. Before jumping blindly into a bevy of bookbinders or a drove of dentists, find out what the hot issues are in their fields. Every industry has burning concerns the outside world knows little about. Ask your informant to bear the industry buzz. Then, to heat the conversation up, push those buttons. See you at the big one. While you're at it, don't forget to grill your informant for special insider greetings to use when you're with their gang. For example, actresses cringe if they hear "good luck" before a show, but they smile at well-wishers who say, "break a leg." Break a leg, however, is not appropriate for runners before a marathon. That's the last thought they want to have. The only thing they want to break is their personal record. Try, have a personal best. Firefighters who work on shift seldom see each other except, of course, at the biggest blazes. Thus the firefighter's greeting, "See you at the big one." Once, driving in a sleepy town you'd have to work at getting lost in, I succeeded. I was hopelessly turned around. Happily, I spotted the firehouse and a couple of bored firefighters lounging out front. "Excuse me, can you tell me the way back to Route 50? I called out the window. I could tell from their attitude they thought I was an idiot. Nevertheless, they lethargically pointed me in the right direction. As I drove off, I called out, "Thanks, guys. See you at the big one." In the rear-view mirror, I saw huge smiles break out on their faces as they stood up in unison and waved goodbye. The disoriented, dizzy blonde driving off had won their respect with their insider salute. 41. How to secretly learn about their lives. Let's say your paper carrier has just hurled the newspaper from his bike to your front door. You pour a cup of coffee and get comfortable to catch up on what's happening in the world. Your world, that is. Do you flip first to the international news, the fashion section, the sports page, the entertainment section, maybe the comics? Whichever section you usually flip to first, tomorrow, don't. Turn to any other section, preferably one you hardly ever read. Why? Because it will familiarize you with other worlds so that you can soon discuss anything with anybody, no matter how little you have in common. How about the real estate section? Yawn. Maybe you don't find real estate especially engrossing. However, sooner or later you're going to find yourself with a group of people who are discussing properties, deals, and today's market. Scanning the real estate section just once every few weeks will keep you au courant with their conversation. The advertising column? Maybe you think the world would be a far, far better place without Madison Avenue. But your bottom line won't be better off if you can't hold your own discussing matters with the marketing maven you've just contracted to advertise your company's widgets. Just a few peeks at the advertising news section, and you'll soon be chatting about campaigns and creative people and doing print or TV. Instead of saying words, you'll be saying copy. Instead of the agency, you'll be bandying about real insider terms like the shop. Using outsider words is one of the biggest giveaways that you are not in the know. On the ship, if a passenger asked any of my staff, "How long have you been working on the boat?" they'd squelch a groan. Cruise staffers proudly worked on a ship, and the word boat revealed the passenger as a real landlubber. The right word can perform conversational miracles. In the receiving line, whenever passengers asked our laconic captain, "When did you first become a master?" or "What was your first command?" he would hold up the entire line of people snaking around the ballroom waiting to shake his hand. Captain Caffiero would enthusiastically recount his naval history to the savvy inquirer who might have just learned the words master or command last week in the newspaper shipping notices. If the passenger had simply said, "How long have you been a captain?" or "What was your first boat?" he or she would have gotten the captain's usual Italian gentleman's version of the bum's rush. Soon you'll become addicted to the high that establishing rapport with so many people gives you. All it takes is reading different sections of the newspaper. Pump their pulp for even more fuel. Then, when you crave a bigger hit of insider lingo, start reading trade journals. Those are the closed circulation magazines that go to members of various industries. Ask your friends in different jobs to lend you one, so you'll have even more fuel for the conversational fire. All industries have one or two. You'll see big glossy rags with names like automotive news, restaurant business, pool and spa news, trucking industry, and even hogs today for people in the pig business. Excuse me, they call themselves swine practitioners. Hey, you never know when to make your next big sale it will help to speak pig. Any one issue will give you a sample of their lingo and inform you of the hottest issues in that field. When it comes to people's hobbies and interests, browse through magazines on running, working out, bicycling, skiing, swimming, and surfing. Large magazine stores carry biker rags, boxer rags, bowler rags, even bull riding rags. You'll find thousands of special interest magazines published every month. Several years ago, I got hooked on buying a different one each week. It paid off quickly when a potential consulting client invited me to dinner at her home. She had a beautiful garden, and thanks to Flower and Garden magazine, I could throw out insider terms like ornamentals, annuals, and perennials. I could even keep up when the discussion turned to the advantages of growing from seeds or bulbs. Because I was so fluent in flower, she invited me to take a longer walk with her to see her private back gardens. As we strolled, I gradually changed the subject from chrysanthemums to the consulting work I could do for her company. Who was leading whom down the garden path? Technique number 41. Read their rags. Is your next big client a golfer, runner, swimmer, surfer, or skier? Are you attending a social function filled with accountants or Zen Buddhists or anything in between? There are untold thousands of monthly magazines serving every imaginable interest. You can dish up more information than you'll ever need to sound like an insider with anyone just by reading the rags that serve their racket. Have you read your latest copy of Zoo News yet? Is the world getting smaller, or are we getting bigger? Today's Renaissance man or woman is comfortable and confident anywhere. The next technique helps you be an insider wherever you find yourself on the planet, and it saves you from fulfilling the world's fantasy of the ugly American. 42. How to talk when you're in other countries. Say you're traveling abroad on business, and you want to be a global insider. What's the first thing on your to-do list? Get a passport and a phrase book, right? After all, who wants to wander around Rome not knowing how to ask for a restroom? Or be thirsty in Kuala Lumpur not knowing how to ask for a soda? However, there's something most of us forget to pack, often with dire consequences. A book on international customs. A friend of mine, a fellow speaker named Geraldine, was excited about her first speech in Japan. To be comfy on her long flight to Tokyo, she donned her favorite designer jeans and a casual jacket. 14 hours and 6,737 miles later, 4 impeccably dressed Japanese gentlemen greeted her at Narita Airport. Smiling and bowing low, they handed her their business cards. With her carry-on bag in one hand, Jerry took their cards with the other. She thanked them, glanced briefly at the cards, and packed them safely into her back pocket. She then pulled one of her business cards out of her purse and, sensitive to the fact that they might have difficulty pronouncing Geraldine, wrote her nickname Jerry above her printed name. The gentleman hovered over her card, turning it over to examine it a few times, before one of them put it in his briefcase. When the 5 of them arrived at the hotel, they invited Jerry for tea in the lobby. While sipping tea, the gentleman presented her with a small gift, which she eagerly opened. One of Jerry's most charming qualities is her instinctive warmth and effusiveness. She was thrilled with the gift, and, in typical Jerry style, she squealed, "Oh, it's beautiful," as she gave each of the gentlemen a little hug. At this point, the 4 Japanese gentlemen stood up in unison like 4 frowning Siamese twins and, bowing only very slightly, mumbled sayonara and promptly left. Poor Jerry was flabbergasted. What did she do wrong? Everything. First, the jeans. Even if you're coming off a bicycle in Asia, you do not meet clients casually dressed. The second mistake was Jerry's vulgar handling of their business cards. In Asia, the business card is one of the most important protocol tools. It is always presented and accepted reverently with both hands, except in Muslim Asia, where the left hand is considered unclean. Jerry then put their cards away much too quickly. In Asia, people use business cards as a conversation starter. You chat about each other's cards and work and do not put theirs away until they gently and respectfully place yours in safekeeping. Shoving it into her back jeans pocket was the ultimate disrespect. Jerry didn't discover her fourth gaffe until she returned home. One of her colleagues, Bill, a seasoned business traveler, analyzed the fiasco for her. Bill told her the reason the gentleman had turned Geraldine's card over and over when she gave it to them at the airport was to find her name, title, and company printed in Japanese on the other side. The flip side of Jerry's card was, of course, blank. Then, fifth horror of horrors, Jerry should not have written on the card. Cards in Asia are not exactly sacred, but one should never deface them with messy handwriting. The sad tale of Jerry and the Japanese gets worse. Bill broke the bad news to her. She should not have opened the gift in front of her clients. Why? Because in a land where saving face is critical, it would be embarrassing to discover the gift they gave was not as nice as the one they received. Yikes, Jerry hadn't even given them a gift. Gaffe number 7. Jerry's little squeal when receiving the gift was also a boo-boo. In Asia, the lower the tone of voice, the higher the rank. The final flub was, of course, giving the gentleman a thank-you hug. Hugging, highly revered in certain parts of the world, is, in Japan, absolutely unacceptable with a new client. Needless to say, Jerry has not been invited back to Japan. However, she does have a gig coming up in El Salvador. This time she's smart. She's studying up on the customs there. Happily, she's finding she can hug to her heart's content. However, she shouldn't use her or anybody else's first name. Oh, and she must not introduce herself as an American. After all, Salvadorans are Americans too. The differences round the world go on and on. Whenever I travel, I have to hit myself over the head and realize I'm not in the anything-goes old USA. I love to travel in jeans. I'm an incurable hugger, and I can't wait to see what's in a gift box anybody gives me. However, whenever I plan to leave Uncle Sam's shores, I check on foreign customs to see how much of myself I can be. Technique number 42. Clear customs. Before putting one toe on foreign soil, get a book on do's and taboos around the world. Before you shake hands, give a gift, make gestures, or even compliment anyone's possessions, check it out. Your gaffe could gum up your entire gig. There are some excellent books on international customs. Don't be like another hapless colleague of mine who almost blew a big business deal with a Brazilian. Just before signing the contract, he gave the OK sign with his thumb and forefinger. Little did he know he was telling his new business partner to go have intercourse with himself. You never know until it's too late. Now we come to where being an insider shows immediate, tangible, and calculable rewards, and where being an outsider really hurts, right in your pocket or purse. 43. How to talk them into getting the insider's price on practically anything you buy. Never underestimate human ingenuity when it comes to getting what you want. Many people expand the adage, all's fair in love and war, to all is fair in love, war, and buying what I want. To get a table at a posh restaurant on a busy night, using a celebrity name is an old ploy. My favorite maitre d' told me he gets a lot of Robert De Niro's phoning in a reservation. When their party of 6 or 8 arrives, he hears, "I'm so sorry, Rob wasn't feeling well this evening." One woman, frustrated when her fake celebrity name didn't work, shouted at him, "Look, who the hell do I have to be to get a table? I'll be anyone you want me to be. Goldie Hawn, Steffi Graf, Fergie. Just tell me." Some people try a last-minute approach. They simply walk up to the maitre d' at an overbooked restaurant, point to any name on the reservation book and say, "That's us." You'll witness the same cunning at overbooked hotels. Several months ago, I was checking into a popular hotel for which, fortunately, I had a confirmed reservation. A loud-mouthed man in front of me in line shouted at the desk clerk, "What do you mean, no room? I'm staying in this hotel tonight. If you don't have a room, I'm sleeping right here on the floor." His temper tantrum was not working. "And I warn you," he continued, "I sleep in the nude." He got a room. These crafty, childish tactics are not recommended. Rather, I suggest a more principled technique called bluffing for bargains. It was born one afternoon sitting with an insurance broker, Mr. Carson. He was trying to sell me a homeowner's policy. Of course, I wanted the most coverage for the least cash. Carson was a smooth operator, and he was patiently explaining to me in layman's terms the benefits of certain riders he was pushing. Just as he started discussing disasters like wars and hurricanes, his phone rang. With apologies, he picked up the receiver. It was one of his colleagues. Suddenly, a metamorphosis took place before my eyes. The sophisticated salesman became a palsy-walsy, regular, down-home kind of guy, chatting it up with his old buddy about umbrellas. I thought they were discussing the weather. Then the conversation turned to floaters. I now assumed they were talking about an eye problem. It took a while for me to realize that umbrella policies and floaters were part of the insurancees they were speaking. A few minutes later, Carson said, "Yeah, okay, so long, buddy," and put the phone down. He cleared his throat and again transmogrified back into the formal sales agent patiently defining damages and deductibles to a naive client. Sitting there listening to baffle-gab like subrogation and pro rata liability, I began to ponder. If Carson's colleague who just called wanted to buy insurance, he would have gotten a much better policy much cheaper. In practically every industry, vendors give 2 prices on goods or services, one to insiders and one to you and me. Before I let myself get angry about this, I thought it through. Is it unfair? Not really. If the vendor doesn't have to spend time being salesman or psychologist answering the endless stream of novice questions, he can afford to give his best price. Carson wouldn't have had to take 20 minutes explaining to his colleague, as he did to me, why, if a tornado takes your house, it's considered an act of God. Therefore, you lose. When knowledgeable associates buy products, the vendor is happily reduced to nothing more than a purchasing agent. For very little work, he makes a small profit and is satisfied. A little bit of knowledge goes a long way when you're buying something. If you have insight into your real estate broker's bottom line, he's more apt to give you the better price. If you are facile with the insider words caterers and car salesmen use to pad their profits, if you're savvy to techniques moving companies and mechanics use to bilk the unsuspecting, if you are on the lookout for lawyers' methods of fattening fees, in short, if you know the ropes, you will not get ripped off. You don't need to know a lot, just a few insider terms. The pro assumes, since you are conversant in some esoteric industry terms, you also know the best deal and rock-bottom price. No one put it better than my house painter Iggy. Sure, he told me, you gotta know how to talk to a painter. Not me, but a lot of them other guys. They're gonna get whatever they can. It's only human nature. Especially if you're a woman and you deal with them smart, like I'm gonna tell you how, their hair will stand on end. They'll say to themselves, "Hey, this is no babe in the woods. I better deal straight." "Okay, Iggy, how?" He said, "Tell them guys, look, the walls need very little prepping. You're not gonna have to spend much time scraping and spackling. It's a clean job." Iggy told me these few sentences alone can save you hundreds of dollars. Why? Right away the painter knows you know the score, and that the most time-consuming part for him is preparing the surface, prepping in painterese. Therefore, it's his biggest markup item. Then, Iggy continued, when you tell him there'll be no cutting in, painting two colors next to each other, your price goes down again. Be sure and tell him not to leave any holidays, unpainted or sparsely painted spots, and you get a more careful job. I'm only sorry I don't have an Iggy in every field to give me a crash course in how to deal. How to deal when there's no Iggy in your life. Here's how to get the best price and the best deal from anyone. Find your Iggy informer. If you have a friend in the business, get the lingo from him. If not, instead of going straight to the vendor you want to buy from, visit several others first. Talk with them. Learn a little lingo from each. For instance, suppose you want to buy a diamond. Instead of going right to your favorite jewelry shop and asking dumbbell diamond questions, go to the competition. Make friends with the sales clerk and pick up a few gems of diamond D's. You'll learn jewelers say stones, not diamonds. When you're talking about the top of the stone, they say table. The widest part is the girdle. The bottom is the cutlet. If the stone looks yellow, don't say yellow, say cape. If you see flaws, don't say flaws, say inclusions or glets. If you still don't like the stone, don't say, "I'd like to see something better." Say, finer. Don't ask me why, that's just the way the diamond crowd talks. Then, when you've got your lingo down, go to where you want to buy. Because you now speak diamond, you get a much better price. Soon you'll be asking furriers where the skins were dressed, moving companies for their ICC performance record, and lawyers the hourly rate of paralegals and associates. Then these folks, like Iggy the painter, will say to themselves, "Hey, this is no babe in the woods. I better deal straight. Technique number 43. Bluffing for bargains. The haggling skills used in ancient Arab markets are alive and well in contemporary America for big-ticket items. Your price is much lower when you know how to deal. Before every big purchase, find several vendors, a few to learn from and one to buy from. Armed with a few words of industry ease, you're ready to head for the store where you're going to buy. Let us now delve deeper into the world of being an insider. This time we explore how to give your conversation partner the sense that you share not only experiences, but the heavy stuff. You share beliefs and values in life. Part 5. How to sound like you're peas in a pod. Why, we're just alike. If you squint your eyes and look up carefully at a flight of birds, you'll see finches flying with finches, swallows soaring with swallows, and yellow birds winging it with yellow birds. The avian apartheid escalates. You'll never see a barn swallow with a bank swallow, or even a yellow bird hanging out with a yellow finch. Somebody said it shorter. Birds of a feather flock together. Happily, humans are smarter than birds. In one respect, at least, we have brains capable of overcoming bias. Really smart human beings work together, play together, and break bread together. Does that mean their comfort level is high? Well, that depends on the human being. Our purpose here is not to examine the absurdity of apartheid. It is to leave no stone unturned in making sure people are completely comfortable doing business or pleasure with you. It has been proven beyond a doubt, people are most receptive to those they feel have the same values in life. In one study, individuals were first given a personality and beliefs test. They were then paired off with a partner and told to go spend time together. Before meeting, half the couples were told that they were very similar in beliefs to their partner. The other half were told they were dissimilar. Neither statement was true. However, when quizzed afterward on how much they liked each other, partners who believed they were similar liked each other a lot more than the couples who thought themselves to be dissimilar, demonstrating we have a predisposition toward people we believe are just like us. We are most comfortable giving our business and friendship to those we feel share our values and beliefs in life. To that end, I offer 6 techniques to create sensations of similarity with everyone you wish. Along with making more profound rapport with customers, friends, and associates, using the following techniques develops a deeper understanding and empathy with people of all races and backgrounds. It also opens doors that might otherwise be closed to you. 44. How to make them feel you're of the same class. Just like the finch flaps its wings faster than the gliding eagle, people of different backgrounds move differently. For example, Westerners used to the wide-open plains stand farther from each other. Easterners, systematically sardined into subways and crowded buses, stand closer. Asian Americans make modest movements. Italian Americans make massive ones. At tea time, the finishing school set genuflects and gracefully lowers derrieres onto the sofa. When the ladies reach for a cup, they hold the saucer in one hand and the cup in the other, pinky ever so slightly extended. Folks who never finished any manners school make a fanny dive in the middle of the sofa, and clutch the cup with both hands. Is one right? Is the other wrong? No. However, top communicators know when doing business with a derriere-dipping pinky extender or a fanny-plopping two-fisted mug-grabber, they darn well should do the same. People feel comfortable around people who move just like they do. I have a friend who travels the country giving an outrageous seminar called How to Marry the Rich. Jeannie was once in a Las Vegas casino when a television reporter asked if she could tell the real rich from the great pretenders. Of course, Jeannie answered. All right, challenged the reporter. Who is the wealthiest man in this room? Convened at the next table were three men in tailored suits. Hayward of Mayfair, London, no doubt, handmade shirts, Charvet of Place Vendôme in Paris, no doubt, and sipping Scotch. Single malt Lefroy from the Scottish island of Islay, no doubt. The reporter naturally assumed Jeannie would choose one of these likely candidates. Instead, with the scrutiny of a hunting dog, Jeannie's eyes scanned the room. Like a trained basset hound, she instinctively pointed a long red fingernail at a fellow in torn jeans at a corner table. She murmured, "He's very rich." Flabbergasted, the reporter asked Jeannie, "How can you tell?" "He moves like old money," she said. "You see," Jeannie went on to explain, "there's moving like old money, there's moving like new money, and there's moving like no money." Jeannie could tell the unlikely chap in the corner was obviously sitting on big assets, and all because of the way he moved. Technique number 44. Be a copy class. Watch people. Look at the way they move. Small movements, big movements, fast, slow, jerky, fluid, old, young, classy, trashy. Pretend the person you are talking to is your dance instructor. Is he a jazzy mover? Is she a balletic mover? Watch his or her body, then imitate the style of movement. That makes your conversation partner subliminally real comfy with you. They're buying you, too. If you're in sales, copy not only your customer's class, but the class of your product as well. I live in a section of New York City called Soho, which is a few blocks above the famous for being trashy Canal Street. Often clutching my purse tightly and dodging the crowds on Canal Street, I'll pass a pickpocket turned salesman for the day. He furtively looks around and flashes a greasy handkerchief at me with a piece of jewelry on it. Psst, want to buy a gold chain? His nervous thief's demeanor alone could get him arrested. Now, about 60 blocks uptown, you'll find the fashionable and very expensive Tiffany's jewelry store. Occasionally, clutching my fantasies of being able to afford something therein, I stroll through the huge gilt doors. Imagine one of the impeccably dressed sales professionals behind the beveled glass counters furtively looking around and saying to me, "Psst, want to buy a diamond? No sale." Match your personality to your product. Selling handmade suits? A little decorum, please. Selling jeans? A little cool, please. Selling sweatsuits? A little sporty, please. And so on for whatever you're selling. Remember, you are your customer's buying experience. Therefore, you are part of the product they're buying. 45. How to make them feel that you're like family. Have you ever been gabbing with a new acquaintance and, after a few moments, you've said to yourself, "This person and I think alike. We're on the same wavelength." It's a fabulous feeling, almost like falling in love. Lovers call it chemistry. New friends talk of instant rapport, and business people say a meeting of minds. Yet it's the same magic, that sudden sense of warmth and closeness, that strange sensation of, wow, we were old friends at once. When we were children, making friends was easier. Most of the kids we met grew up in the same town, and so they were on our wavelength. Then the years went by. We grew older. We moved away. Our backgrounds, our experiences, our goals, our lifestyles became diverse. Thus, we fell off each other's wavelengths. Wouldn't it be great to have a magic surfboard to help you hop right back on everybody's wavelength whenever you wanted? Here it is, a linguistic device that gets you riding on high rapport with everyone you meet. If you stand on a mountain cliff and shout, "Hello!" across the valley, your identical "Hello!" thunders back at you. I call the technique echoing because, like the mountain, you echo your conversation partner's precise words. It all started across the ocean. In many European countries, you'll hear 5, 10, or more languages within the language. For example, in Italy, the Sicilians from the south speak a dialect that seems like gobbledygook to northern Italians. In an Italian restaurant, I once overheard a diner discover his waiter was also from Udine, a town in northeastern Italy where they speak the Friulano dialect. The diner stood up and hugged the waiter like he was a long-lost brother. They started babbling in a tongue that left the other Italian waiters shrugging. In America, we have dialects too. We just aren't conscious of them. In fact, we have thousands of different words depending on our region, our job, our interests, and our upbringing. Once, when traveling across the country, I tried to order a soda like a Coke or 7-Up in a highway diner. It took some explaining before the waitress understood I wanted what she called a pop. Perhaps because the English-speaking world is so large, Americans have a wider choice of words for the same old stuff than any language I've encountered. Family members find themselves speaking alike. Friends use the same words, and associates in a company or members in a club talk alike. Everyone you meet will have his or her own language that subliminally distinguishes them from outsiders. The words are all English, but they vary from area to area, industry to industry, and even family to family. The linguistic device that says, "We're on the same wavelength." When you want to give someone the subliminal feeling you're just alike, use their words, not yours. Suppose you are selling a car to a young mother who tells you she is concerned about safety because she has a young toddler. When explaining the safety features of the car, use her word. Don't use whatever word you call your kids. Don't even say child protection lock, which was in your sales manual. Tell your prospect, no toddler can open the window because of the driver's control device. Even call it a toddler protection lock. When Mom hears toddler coming from your lips, she feels you are family, because that's how all her relatives refer to her little tyke. Suppose your prospect had said kid or infant. Fine. Echo any word she used. Well, almost any word. If she'd said my brat, You might want to pass on echoing this time. Echoing at parties. Let's say you were at a party. It's a huge bash with many different types of people. You are first chatting with a lawyer who tells you her profession is often maligned. When it comes your turn to speak, say profession too. If you say job, it puts a subconscious barrier between you. Next, you meet a construction worker who starts talking about his job. Now you're in trouble if you say, well, in my profession, he'd think you were being hoity-toity. After the lawyer and the construction worker, you talk to several freelancers. First a model, then a professional speaker, finally a pop musician. All three of these folks will use different words for their work. The model brags about her bookings. The professional speaker might say bookings, but he is more apt to boast of his speaking engagements. A pop musician might say, yeah, man, I get a lot of gigs. It's tough to memorize what they all call their work. Just keep your ears open and echo their word after they say it. Echoing goes beyond job names. For example, if you are chatting with a boat owner and you call his boat an it, he labels you a real landlubber. He reverently refers to his beloved boat, of course, as a she. If you listen carefully, you hear language subtleties you never dreamed existed. Would you believe using the wrong synonym for a seemingly uncomplicated word like have labels you a know-nothing in somebody else's world? For example, cat lovers purr about having cats, but horse people would say owning horses. And fish folk don't own fish. They talk about keeping fish. Hey, no big deal. But if you use the wrong word, your conversation partner will assume, correctly, that you are a stranger in his or her hobbyland. The peril of not echoing. Sometimes you lose out by not echoing. My friend Phil and I were talking with several guests at a party. One woman proudly told the group about the wonderful new ski chalet she had just purchased. She was looking forward to inviting her friends up to her little chalet in the mountains. That's wonderful, said Phil, secretly hoping for an invitation. Where exactly is your cabin? Kerplunk! There went Phil's chances for an invitation to the ladies' chalet. I couldn't resist. After the conversation, I whispered to my friend, Phil, why did you insult that woman by calling her chalet a cabin? Phil scratched his head and said, What do you mean, insult her? Cabin is a beautiful word. My family has a cabin in Cape Cod, and I grew up loving the word, the associations, the joy of a cabin. In other words, the connotations of cabin. Well, fine, Phil. The word cabin may be beautiful to you, but obviously the skier preferred the word chalet. Professional echoing. In today's sales environment, customers expect salespeople to be problem solvers, not just vendors. They feel you don't grasp their industry's problems if you don't speak their language. I have a friend, Penny, who sells office furniture. People in publishing, advertising, broadcasting, and a few lawyers are among her clients. Penny's sales manual says office furniture. However, she told me if she used the word office with all of her clients, they'd assume she knew nothing about their respective industries. She told me her client, the purchasing officer in advertising, talks about his advertising agency. Penny's publishing client says publishing house. The lawyers talk about furniture for their firm, and her radio clients use the word station instead of office. Hey, Penny says, it's their salt mine. They can call it whatever the heck they please. And, she added, if I want to make the sale, I'd better call it the same thing. Echoing is politically correct insurance. Here's a quiz. You're talking with a pharmacist and you ask her, how long have you worked at the drugstore? What's wrong with that question? Give up? It's the word drugstore. Pharmacists abhor the word because it conjures up many industry problems. They're used to hearing it from outsiders, but it's a tip-off that they are unaware of or insensitive to their professional problems. They prefer pharmacy. Recently, at a reception, I introduced one of my friends, Susan, as a daycare worker. Afterwards, Susan begged, Leal, please do not call me a daycare worker. We're child care workers. Whoops! Time and recent history quickly make certain terms archaic. A group's intense preference for one word is not arbitrary. Certain jobs, minorities, and special interest groups often have a history the public is not sensitive to. When that history has too much pain attached to it, people invent another word that doesn't have bitter connotations. I have a dear friend, Leslie, who is in a wheelchair. She says whenever anyone says the word handicapped, she cringes. Leslie says it makes her feel less than whole. We prefer you say person with a disability. She then gave a moving explanation. We people with disabilities are the same as every other able-bodied person. We say AB, she added. ABs go through life with all the same baggage we do. We just carry one extra piece, a disability. It's simple. It's effective. To show respect and make people feel close to you, echo their words. It makes you a more sensitive communicator and keeps you out of trouble every time. Technique number 45. Echoing. Echoing is a simple linguistic technique that packs a powerful wallop. Listen to the speaker's arbitrary choice of nouns, verbs, prepositions, adjectives, and echo them back. Hearing their words come out of your mouth creates subliminal rapport. It makes them feel you share their values, their attitudes, their interests, their experiences.
This is released for the sake of education. This is a brief key insight about all the concepts of the book. We provide free audio books, key insights, summaries, and brief study notes on the concepts of the books. So make sure to subscribe and become a part of our family.